I'm 76 years old, and most mornings I wake up with the same quiet thought sitting beside me before I even open my eyes. I spent my life providing, and it took me this long to understand that providing was not the same as being present. That realization didn't come all at once. It came slowly, like light creeping into a room you've lived in too long with the curtains closed. I'm not telling this because I want sympathy. At my age, sympathy doesn't change much. I'm telling it because time feels thinner now, like the last pages of a book you've been meaning to reread, only to realize you won't get the chance. I speak now because there isn't much later left. I sit in the same chair every morning. It creaks when I lean back. The house is quiet in a way that used to feel earned. I worked for this quiet. That's what I told myself. But now it feels more like a reminder than a reward. The walls hold memories I didn't notice while I was busy making sure those walls existed. When I was younger, I believed my main job was to provide, to keep food on the table, to keep the lights on, to make sure my family never had to worry the way I worried growing up. That belief shaped everything I did. It decided where I went each morning and how tired I came home each night. It decided which conversations I postponed and which moments I assumed would wait. In my 20s, I didn't feel like I had choices. That's how it seemed. There was work to be done, bills to be paid, mouths to feed. I wasn't chasing status or praise. I was chasing stability. I wanted my family to feel safe. I wanted my children to grow up without the fear I carried from my own childhood. That felt noble, necessary, even loving. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs. I told myself it was temporary, just until things got easier, just until the next raise, just until the house was paid down a little more. Those just untils stretched across decades without me noticing. I remember coming home late, stepping quietly through the front door so I wouldn't wake the kids. I'd stand in their doorway for a moment, watching them sleep, their chests rising and falling, their small hands curled into fists. I told myself that counted as being there, that watching them from the doorway was enough. I didn't want to disturb them. I didn't want to disrupt the peace I'd worked so hard to provide. My wife would already be in bed, sometimes awake, sometimes not. If she was awake, we'd exchange a few words, mostly about logistics, what needed fixing, what needed paying, what tomorrow looked like. Real conversations felt like something we'd get back to when life slowed down. We were always tired. We were always planning for later. Weekends weren't rest. They were catch-up, yard work, repairs, errands, things that piled up during the week while I was gone. The kids would ask if I could play with them, toss a ball, build something. I'd say, in a bit, or after this. Sometimes I meant it, sometimes I forgot. I don't remember making a decision to miss their games or school events. I remember glancing at the calendar and thinking, I can't get off work that day, or they'll understand, or there will be more. I assumed childhood was long. I assumed my role was fixed, provider first, everything else second. The years moved quietly. No alarms went off. No one sat me down and told me I was getting it wrong. On the surface, things looked fine. The bills were paid, the fridge was full, birthdays were acknowledged, even if sometimes with a late card or a rushed cake. We took vacations, though I was often distracted checking my watch, thinking about work. I told myself my absence was temporary, that once the kids were older, I'd have more time. Once the mortgage was smaller, I'd relax. Once retirement came, I'd finally be present. I believed presence was something you could schedule for later. What I didn't notice was how relationships thin when you keep postponing them. Not breaking, just thinning. Like fabric worn smooth over time. Strong enough to hold together, but not warm anymore. My children learned not to ask as much. They stopped waiting for me to show up and started adjusting their expectations. That didn't come with an argument or a fight. It came quietly. I didn't notice it until much later, when the house felt emptier, even when it was full. My wife and I became efficient partners. We ran a household well. We knew each other's routines, but there were things we stopped sharing because there never seemed to be a good time. Dreams, fears, small disappointments. We handled life together, but we didn't always sit with it together. I thought love was proven through sacrifice, through exhaustion, through doing what needed to be done even when you didn't want to. I didn't realize that love also needs presence, needs attention, needs time that isn't squeezed between obligations. The cost didn't come all at once. It came in missed dinners that became normal, in conversations that started with "someday," in moments where I chose sleep over listening because I was too tired to hear another story about school or work or feelings. I told myself I'd make it up later. Later came, but it didn't look the way I expected. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It rarely is. It was a phone call telling me my wife was sick. Really sick. The kind of sick that doesn't wait for convenient timing. I remember sitting in a hospital room, watching machines do the work her body was struggling to do, and realizing how little time we'd actually spent just being together. I was there then, fully. I took time off. I sat by her bed. I listened. I held her hand. I wanted to pour all the presents I'd saved up over the years into those weeks. But presence doesn't work like that. You can't make up for decades of absence by suddenly showing up. She didn't blame me. That almost made it worse. She smiled at me and thanked me for everything I'd done, for providing, for working so hard, for taking care of the family. I wanted her to be angry. I wanted her to tell me she'd needed more, but she was tired and kind and slipping away. After she was gone, the house became unbearably quiet. Not the peaceful quiet I used to chase, but a hollow one. I had all the time in the world then. Retirement had arrived. The work phone stopped ringing. The deadlines disappeared. I finally had the presence I'd promised myself. But there was no one left who needed it the way they once had. My children are grown now. They have lives of their own. They call, they visit when they can. They're kind, but there's a distance that feels earned, not through cruelty or neglect, but through years of absence that taught them not to rely too heavily on me. I don't blame them. They adapted. They had to. There are things I can't fix. I can't go back to those doorways and step into the room instead of standing quietly at the threshold. I can't attend the games I missed or hear the stories that were never told because I wasn't there to listen. I can't sit at the kitchen table with my wife on an ordinary evening and talk about nothing important at all. Time doesn't return what you postpone. It just moves on. I used to believe being remembered meant being appreciated for what you provided, for what you built. Now I understand that people remember how you made them feel when you were with them, or how you weren't. If you're listening to this, I'm not telling you what to do. I don't know your life. I don't know your responsibilities. I know what it feels like to believe you're doing the right thing while quietly trading away something you don't realize is irreplaceable. Providing matters. It does. Security matters. Responsibility matters. But presence is not a luxury you earn later. It's something that only exists in the moment you're in. Once that moment passes, it doesn't come back wearing a different face. If I had understood that earlier, I might have made different choices, not fewer responsibilities, just different priorities within them. I might have sat down more often. I might have listened when I was tired. I might have let the yard wait and the dishes sit while I spent 10 more minutes with the people who were building memories without me. Now, I do what I can with what's left. I answer the phone when it rings. I listen more than I talk. I try to be fully in the room, even when the room feels emptier than it used to. I accept that some absences can't be filled. There's a strange mix of gratitude and sorrow that comes with age. I'm grateful I was able to provide. Grateful my family never went without. Grateful for the life I built. But sorrow sits alongside it, reminding me that success and fulfillment aren't the same thing. I don't have many years left. I feel that in my bones. I move slower. I rest more. I think more than I used to. I've stopped assuming there will be more time later. What's left is what's left. If this meant something to you, sit with it quietly. You don't need to change your life overnight. Just notice where your presence goes. Notice who's standing in the doorway, waiting for you to step inside. As for me, I'll be here tomorrow morning in this creaking chair, letting the light come in as it will, accepting what was and holding gently onto what still is.